Another battle over gun control about to hit Capitol Hill. Senate Democrats introducing a new bill banning assault weapons, as well as high-capacity magazines and so-called bump stocks. Joining me now, Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware. Sir, thank you for being with us today. What do you think would be different this time around in trying to get this bill passed?
Well, Dana, I have co-sponsored a bill that would outlaw bump stocks, trigger cranks, the things that were used by the shooter in the tragedy in Las Vegas to take semi-automatic weapons and make them automatic weapons. And that's a small but real step that has been considered or discussed by folks from all different backgrounds in the debate about guns and the Second Amendment. I'm very encouraged, Dana, that Republican chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Chuck Grassley of Iowa, has joined with Dianne Feinstein to call a hearing for next week. It'll be Tuesday, where we're going to look at bump stocks and background checks. I think we need to focus on things that we can credibly get done that will deal with some of the flaws and holes in our current background check system, that'll advance some responsible fixes to things like bump stocks being widely available, and that'll invest in mental health care. We've got laws on the books that aren't being fully enforced, as we saw with the shooter in Texas, and we've got situations where I think we should be able to legislate to address some of the challenges facing our country in regards to mental health and widespread access to guns by those who shouldn't have access to guns.
What do you think that could be done from a messaging standpoint, from a Democrat's perspective, to try to advance legislation that you want, but to not alienate so many people who feel like it's just a slippery slope to taking away their Second Amendment rights?
Well, I think it's important for those of us who are Democrats and in the Senate, who've gone hunting, who are gun owners, who have grown up in a community, a culture, or a family of gun ownership, to speak clearly and forcefully to the point that we don't want to violate the Second Amendment. We don't want to take people's guns away. We just want to make sure that folks who legally shouldn't have access to guns, convicted felons, those who've committed acts of domestic violence, those who are adjudicated to be mentally ill, that they don't have access to guns. And I do think there is a middle path where we reassert to people who are concerned about our intentions that it's not our goal to take people's guns away.
Do you think you would have any Republican co-sponsors then, or be able to pass it this time around?
Well, we'll see. I think a reasonable centrist proposal around background checks that fixes some of the loopholes that caused or helped facilitate, the tragic killing in Texas is exactly the sort of thing we ought to be able to address. Look, the killer there was convicted of domestic violence, such a severe incident of violence against his own family that he spent a year in the brig and was dishonorably discharged. The failure to transfer that to Texas, to law enforcement there, made it easier for him to get access to a weapon.
Yes, and in fact, we just heard from Casey Stegall and the pastor of that church in Texas, and he said that he forgives the shooter, but he has real issues with basically this guy falling through the cracks and being able to perpetrate this crime. Can I switch gears with you just for a second? Because the other day you were on the phone with President Trump when he called in to talk to several Democrats on the Senate side about tax reform. And I know that in just any moment now, Senate Republicans will release their version of the bill. Do you think that you could be a yes on tax reform?
Well, there were 12 Democratic senators who were in a meeting with Gary Cohn, who's Trump's most senior economic advisor, when the president called in from his trip to Asia. I appreciate that he took the time out to reach out to us. I think what he heard from all 12 of us was it is awfully late in this process to ask us for our ideas, given that the tax bill is going to be released later today, and they're talking about marking it up on Monday. But in some ways, better late than never. My point to the president was this. He campaigned on a middle-class tax cut, on strengthening manufacturing and infrastructure. And those are three priorities that we share. And I think if he accepts the tax plan that's being moved by Republicans here in the House and the Senate, it's not going to meet those goals. It's going to raise taxes over 10 years on many of the middle class, and most of the benefits will be seen by the wealthiest Americans. That's not what he campaigned on. If the Republicans are unsuccessful in their current efforts, I hope he will open the door to working with us and finding a bipartisan path to doing what he actually campaigned on.
Yeah, Kellyanne Conway was on with Harris Faulkner just a few moments ago and saying that it's not up to Republicans to be bipartisan, but the Democrats, there's an open door, and if you guys want to come through it, they'll accept it. Ron Wyden is on the floor of the Senate talking about about it right now. You're from a low-tax state. I imagine that just philosophically you can see the benefit of lower taxes. So do you think that there's anything that you would suggest or try to amend to get yourself to a yes?
Yes, I have 3 bipartisan tax proposals. I actually talked to Kellyanne Conway about them when we were at a dinner together a number of weeks ago. My co-sponsors are conservative Republican senators, and these are designed to strengthen manufacturing in the United States, to help make domestic energy more broadly competitive. I've been honored to work with Senator Jerry Moran on the Competitiveness Caucus that we co-founded, and a number of my proposals come out of that experience. Senator Roberts of Kansas and I have a bill that would encourage companies to manufacture here what they make here by giving them a bigger R&D credit. If they make things here, they invent here. I've suggested those ideas to Gary Cohn, to Kellyanne Conway, to Secretary Ross, and I'm hopeful we'll have a chance to work together on them.
Maybe we'll find out later today if any of those make it into the Senate bill. Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much.